Love it. Alrighty. Well, We-Solation is a wonderful series inspired by Sophie, actually, at Your Eco Friend, who's with us today, to have a little bit of community during our social distancing and isolation, and share some skills, share some knowledge. So we've been learning a lot from each other and from all the guests that we've had on so far. Today we have with us Laura Markley from Waste Free PhD, at Waste Free PhD, sorry. And I will let her introduce herself. So Laura, tell us.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, sorry, I'm like a little laggy, I think.
I can hear you.
Sound okay? Okay, cool. So my name is Laura. I'm a PhD student at Syracuse University, studying the impacts of plastic on human health and on ecosystem health. And I'm the founder of Waste Free PhD. So I talk about, misinformation about sustainability, things like that. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. And if you see me swatting at stuff, I have a bunch of ants on my desk.
Good to know.
All right, great. Before we jump in, also hello, Steph. We've gained a new person.
Hello, Steph.
So I'm just going to do a quick land acknowledgement, and then we'll explain how today is going to work. So I'm going to do the land acknowledgement as if I were in Toronto, because I don't actually know the details for Guelph, unfortunately. So basically Toronto, otherwise known as Takaranto, is on the traditional territories of the Wendat peoples, the Chippewa, the Mississaugas of the New Credit, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabeg. Of course, now there are many other Indigenous people who are living in Toronto. And we are all very lucky to be visitors and settlers on that territory. Toronto is covered under Treaty 13, which is the Dish with One Spoon Treaty, which is basically an invitation to share the land, to share the resources, and to take care of the land and resources so that we can all participate and partake in its abundance, which is a really beautiful thing and something that I think is so important as we are all in this time with significant challenges because of coronavirus, because of the economic impacts that coronavirus has had on all of us. Some of us are in isolation and feeling quite lonely. And so just knowing that, or keeping that framework in mind of sharing and caring and building a community is so important, I think. In terms of other things that I just wanted to flag, there are many different impacts that coronavirus has had on people across this land, specifically Indigenous people. And so I'm just gonna talk about that briefly. There was a briefly and not briefly, because it's me and I have lots to say, but I'm gonna try and keep this short. There was a newspaper article that came out in Toronto Star talking about how in Canada we do not want to collect any race-based data about coronavirus and its impacts, which is an interesting statement. The statement being that we don't need those we don't need those data at this point because basically we know who's most at risk in this country. If you look anywhere else in the world, particularly if you look south of the border at this point, it's become very clear very quickly that there are racial disparities in the way in which coronavirus is impacting people. So Black people, Indigenous people are dying at higher rates, they're getting infected at higher rates than other people in the population. This is also true in Canada, despite what our officials seem to believe about that. And so in not collecting this data, I think it's just, it's a little bit of a racist moment. It's one of those like Canadian beliefs, like we don't see color. It's one of those moments. Like we're so good. We don't have racism here. We do. If you look at the SARS crisis, the first one in 2008, there was a 5 times higher rate of deaths in Indigenous communities than in non-Indigenous communities. So I think that's just something that we really need to keep in mind, and we should be pushing for that sort of representation so that we know who's most affected, we know how to best use our resources, we know how to best take care of people. To say that we don't need that data is just, in fact, a lie. So that's number one. Number two is just the ongoing fossil fuel projects that we are pushing through. So CGL, the Trans Mountain Pipeline, soon to be also Keystone Pipeline, they all go through Indigenous territories. They all require thousands of workers who are not practicing what I would call any sort of useful social distancing. And so these indigenous communities, which are very remote, they don't have robust healthcare systems, they don't have ventilators up there, they are being put at more risk than any of us are by these projects that are sanctioned and funded by our taxpayer dollars. So there are many different petitions that you can sign about this issue. I will post them in the YouTube comments and on our YouTube page after this so that you can go sign them if you'd like. But I think it's just something we should keep in mind. And I'm going to end it there because otherwise I have to talk all day and no one wants to listen to that. But if you're listening, I'm going to turn it over to Lynn.
No, thank you for that. I just want to cut in for 1 second to let you know that Krista let us know that Missouri is also not collecting that information, and it's very frustrating. So thank you for sharing that, Krista.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. I enjoy always listening to you talk. So, you know, I always learn so much. Thank you for that. I think it's really important to keep all of those things in mind. So let us get going on our super fun trivia game. The topic today, it's a variety of topics, but I guess all under the theme of discussing things that we don't usually think of as toxic and things that we usually think of as toxic. So discussing toxins, what that means, where they're found. Laura's going to do a much better job of describing any of this than I am. So I'm just going to let her do this.
Are we just going to jump in?
Just to explain quickly how the poll works for everyone who is here right now, including Steph. So each question is its own little poll. So a question will pop up on your screens. We will read it out loud, as well as all of the possible answers you can select. You can make your choices, press submit, and then we will share the results with you and then move on to the next question like that. Cool beans, let's go.
Let's do it. All right, question number 1. Relaunch. Okay, continue. Okay, here we go, poll in progress. Okay, so which of the following can be toxic to humans? Select all that apply. UV light, water, alcohol, fossil fuel emissions, plants. I feel like we need Jeopardy music.
And I won't answer because that's cheating.
True. We're also going to not answer. Can we even answer? I don't think we can as hosts answer, so that's probably just as well. Okay, we'll give you all another 5 seconds.
And once you have clicked your answers, don't forget to press the submit button. Otherwise, we won't see them.
All right.
Wait, no.
Oh, 0 out of 4 have voted. Okay. I will hold my excitement.
Literally just get pretty easy.
When do I know? Okay, press submit.
Let's do a quick ask. Have any of you guys pressed submit yet? And this is just not showing up for us.
Oh, they have. Yeah, see? Weird.
I did.
Okay, let's see. Press end poll, see what happens. Weird. We cannot see your results. We do not know why.
I don't know why. Well, whatever.
Adriana, is it possible that Adriana can see it because you're both logged in? No? I don't know. Just curious.
Don't know.
Oh, you're not. Right. Sorry.
Okay, well, welcome to technological difficulty number 1. Okay, so we cannot share what you all have selected, but that's fine.
But we will share the correct answers.
Exactly, which is almost as good. Okay, so Laura, do you want to tell us what the right answer for number 1 is?
Sure, yeah, so it would be all of them. And I'll just do a slight explanation. So UV light, I think this is always like a funny one because I actually have seen people on Instagram who tell me that they like stare at the sun for a certain amount of time during like the day. And I'm always like, that sounds like a really bad idea. But UV light can cause skin cancer. So it definitely has that impact as well as others. Water can cause water intoxication. So that's one of those high dosage of water can be bad for you. And alcohol can cause a variety of neurological issues. Fossil fuel emissions can cause asthma, and plants can be poisonous or cause contact dermatitis, different things like that.
That's true. I had contact dermatitis, but I don't think it was from a plant. It was not comfy. Is anyone surprised by those answers? I was surprised by water. I didn't really realize that.
Okay. I sometimes have patients who tell me they drink like 8 liters of water a day, and I'm always concerned.
What's the optimal amount of water to drink in a day?
Somewhere on the average of 2 to 3 liters, or 1.5 really. To 3 would be a lot. If you're like a runner or something, you know, if you're doing a lot of physical activity, 3 would be reasonable, or live in the desert or something. For most of us, 1.5 is just fine. Okay,
Question 2. True or false? Organic produce is healthier and less toxic than conventional produce. Let's see if your answers work this time. I'm like crossing my fingers like, please show up. Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, it worked before. That's so weird.
Oh, we tried this on my phone yesterday and it worked just fine.
It was just going
I
swimmingly.
just don't understand this technology. I love it. All right. Well, let's assume everyone's answered because it's very quick. And yeah, still don't see answers. So if you press share results, what happens? Nothing.
Nothing.
Oh, I saw it.
Okay, but does it say that you've selected anything?
Oh, but I didn't select anything.
Fair, but okay, everyone else in the call, can you see any numbers other than 0, which is what I see?
Yeah, so it says host is sharing poll results, true 67% and false 33%.
Okay, we can't see them, which is fascinating and intriguing.
That's weird.
That's
Okay.
very weird. Okay,
Okay, well, good. Adriana, you can be the results sharer.
I will share.
Okay, Laura, why don't you tell us the right answer?
Okay, so that is false. Organic food can still use pesticides, and pesticide residues in both organic. Oh, I'm purple now.
You are
That's
fun.
I look like I'm in a rave. Okay. So pesticide residues are typically far lower than concentrations that would be concerning for ingestion for both organic and conventional. And use of too many pesticides is a legitimate concern. Sorry, I just saw this little chat.
Got it.
But scaring people out of eating produce is part of the problem. So a lot of people will opt to just not have produce or not buy produce if they can't afford organic. So I think spreading the message that both are fine and just like wash your produce before using with water is probably a better way to go. And the whole clean 15 and dirty dozen is also just a load of crap, to say the
I've heard
least.
of what this
I've
is.
never heard
Please
of those.
describe what's clean 15 and dirty dozen.
Oh, you haven't heard about those? So it's the Environmental Working Group comes out with this list every year, which is the clean 15 and dirty dozen. And it's basically these 15 produce have the least pesticide residues and are safe to consume without like peeling off the outer layer. And then the dirty dozen are ones that you want to like probably buy organic, but it's based on a lot of misinformation and it's just like not super accurate. So those can be like a little misleading. They use USDA data, which is good, but they kind of convey it in a way where they're not telling you what the toxic dosage is. So they're not really telling you this is safe or unsafe to eat. They're just saying these have higher levels, even if those levels are safe to consume, if that makes sense.
That does make
Yes.
sense.
That does make sense. Interesting.
Doesn't it? Oh, looks like Sophie has a
I have
question.
Yeah, can I ask? I've been seeing recently, I started washing my fruit with soap once the COVID-19 came around. I was like, well, I guess I better step up my washing game. And then I saw a bunch of things saying, no, don't use soap and don't use vinegar and just use water. Do you know anything about that, Laura? Like what the most effective way is to clean our produce?
Yeah, so I've seen both of those, and I knew someone would probably ask that. And I don't want to recommend either way, just because I think it's better to rely on like what the CDC says versus someone like me who doesn't know.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks.
I've seen conflicting stuff. Yeah.
Right. Same.
What is the EWG?
Sorry,
So that's
do you
the-
mind? Sorry, I was just gonna ask Tony and Lynn. I personally can't hear you very well. I can hear Laura really well, and I can hear AJ really well, but I can't hear you
It's-
both very
You can
well.
move it
I don't know
closer
if
to that.
that's the same for everyone else.
Can you guys hear us now?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, good.
Okay, my bad.
Krista
Ooh.
says she uses that EWG to guide her shopping as well. I don't know what EWG stands for though, so we shall find out. In the meantime, question number 3. All right. When ingested in large quantities, blank may irritate the GI tract or cause vomiting, respiratory distress, convulsion, and death. Dun dun dun. Fill in the blank.
Gotta have some drama.
Table salt, pepper, carbon tetrachloride, which is a refrigerant or dry cleaning agent, which is something that I always think about and then never bother to research. But like, what is dry cleaning actually?
Yeah, I don't know.
I have no idea.
That's what I think. I think it's just cleaning with chemicals, maybe.
Yeah, but how?
I don't know.
Renata, are you okay?
Oh, Renata joined us. Yay.
Okay, I'm gonna end the poll.
Oh, environmental working group. Okay. Uses the
I'm not
environmental
sorry.
to guide her shopping.
I'm not.
Good to know.
Hi, Renata. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. I'm okay.
Good. She messaged me before this. She cut her hand, I think.
I was making kombucha and my glass shattered, spraying me with boiling water and slicing me open. So
Well, I'm amazed that you're still here.
I know.
Thank you for joining us.
The dedication.
I'm taking my mind off things. This is great. Thanks, guys.
Alrighty. So the YouTube vote is salt for this question. What else has everyone rung in with? Adriana, can you see the results? Because we can't.
Oh, so 67% of us said table salt. Nobody said pepper. And carbon, how do we say that?
Tetrachloride.
Yep, 33%.
Laura, what's the correct answer?
So it'd be table salt. So when ingested at a high concentration, so like 1,000 grams and 600 milliliters of water, table salt can be deadly. And sodium chloride is also used to induce emesis or vomiting in some patients. And there have been cases where that's been used in like small children and it's caused death or brain damage if it was at too high a concentration.
Wow.
Yeah, as a doctor, I would strongly recommend against that.
So my takeaway from this question, eat less fries.
Well, no, fries are fine. We love fries.
Okay.
On to the next one.
Yeah.
Okay, number 4. 1 second. Yes. Which of the following cleaning agents does not kill bacteria and viruses as well as conventional disinfectants? Options are borax, soap, acetic acid, 4 to 7%, otherwise known as vinegar.
You know what? The answer I put for this is misleading and I'll fix it.
Okay, excellent.
You are giving answers, so you have free reign.
Cool, cool.
I'll just give everyone a few more seconds and then we will.
Just want to say this is fun.
I'm having a great time. Okay, share results.
Adriana, let's go.
All right. So nobody said borax, 33% said salt, and then 67% said acetic acid, which was also said quite a bit on YouTube. So,
Okay,
Okay.
good. Perfect.
Right, so the correct answer is acetic acid, but I also want to stipulate that the other two, I haven't looked into if they kill certain viruses, but they also probably don't completely. I mean, soap with hands, yes, but I don't know about soap on surfaces. So I wanted to put that caveat. So a lot of people will swap out their cleaners like bleach and other things for acetic acid, which is vinegar. So like white wine vinegar is usually 4 to 7% acetic acid, but it doesn't kill pathogenic bacteria as well as other disinfectants, and also won't kill the stomach bug and more currently won't kill coronavirus. So I've seen a lot of people posting about, I'm using like alternative cleaners or a natural cleaner, but a lot of them don't meet the standards set by the World Health Organization or the Center for Disease Control for killing coronavirus. So just to be careful what you read on the internet about the current state of things.
Good to know.
I have a question for you. I was going to leave it till the end, but I feel like it's very topical, so I'm just going to ask it now. So that being said, are the natural cleaning products, like except when we're, you know, in a crisis of like a very deadly virus, are natural products like better to use than the synthetic ones that you find in the store? Or like, I don't know. I feel like Windex, Vim, all those like highly chemically products, I feel like using them all the time is maybe not a good idea, because I know they have things that can like kill fish and things in the water supply, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the person. So, I mean, people going through like cancer treatment and stuff like that, I think they need to have like, and people with, you know, autoimmune disorders, people that need to have things very highly disinfected because of their compromised immune system. I think that's really important for them to consider like using a proven disinfectant. Of course, I'm not a doctor, so I think, you know, listen to your doctor always over, you know, someone on the internet or someone like me. But I think there are certain cases where you should be using a proven disinfectant, and certain cases where cleaning with like a natural disinfectant or something else that's like homemade is perfectly fine. So I keep both of them on hand. And I personally will just do it like case by case if I want to just clean something, which is like get dirt off of a surface, or, you know, just wipe something off of a surface like food, whatever. I also don't eat meat, so that's not a problem. Then I'll just use a vinegar spray or like 7th generation spray. But if I were to eat meat, fish, or want to actually like disinfect something, then I would probably use dilute bleach or something else that's more of a proven disinfectant for something like that.
Thank you. Anyone else
I
have
have
a
a
question? Yep. Go ahead. Sophie.
Okay. I also was just wondering, like, I saw if you are making your own DIY stuff, I saw that, I think it might have been a video that you posted, I'm not sure, Laura, of someone else recommending at least 60% alcohol for any DIY stuff. Is that what you know of as well? Sorry, for coronavirus.
I think that's hand sanitizers, right?
Oh, was it hand sanitizers? Maybe that. Yeah, that's right. It was hand sanitizers.
So when looking for a store-bought cleaner or a DIY cleaner, is there sort of like a go-to that people should look for that to know that it's going to be effective? I don't know. Like bleach, I know is one. Oh, alcohol, anything else?
Yeah.
Or
I think hydrogen peroxide.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I guess the caveat with all those things, if you dilute them again with water, they're diluted. So just to keep in mind, like if you're, and bleach should be diluted. I'm just saying, like, there are instructions on how to make disinfectants. I would look them up.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Does anyone here have any?
I've got a perfect disinfectant.
Yeah. A question from YouTube. How about using vodka for a cleaner? I've heard that going around the internet recently.
It seems like a waste of vodka. Okay, so like in terms of hand sanitizers, that absolutely will not work. So the recommendations from the CDC are
it's not
have
high
60%
enough, right?
alcohol content. Vodka is about 40%. Most of our hard liquors are 40%. Unless you're in like Peru where you can get very high proof alcohol, we can't get that here. So
Like Everclear, I think, is high enough.
what is, sorry?
Super high. Everclear.
I don't even know what that is. Sure, if you have that, great. But yeah, it has to be at least 60%. We're not in that.
I was just going to say, I think Everclear is high enough that it's like 80%.
Ooh, okay, perfect. So
Who drinks this?
is that drinking ready? Like, do we sell that in the LCBO? Or is this
I don't know. I mean, it's sold in California. I just got it to make a tincture. Sorry, there's toddler noise.
Oh, God, that's what we get. More fun kids. I love this. Okay, great.
Okay.
Any other questions on that one? Ooh, it's snowing here. Sorry, I just looked out my window and it's snowing.
Whoa.
Welcome to April. Love it. Okay. Next
Let's
question.
go to poll number 5, I think. So,
Mhm.
yes. Okay. Question 5. Compared with other plastics, PET plastic, aka like plastic water bottles, is more stable and leaches fewer reproductive toxins. True or false?
So that's like also plastic number 1. If you see like the little symbol on the bottom, it's usually a 1.
Gotcha. Recyclable kind.
Sorry, I get excited about recycling, guys. I shouldn't.
I feel like that was a trick question.
I do. It's a trick question.
Let's find out. Okay. So, how did we do?
100% false.
Ooh.
Hey,
Laura.
take it away.
Okay, so this is a tricky one. So it's true. So though PET water bottles have been shown to leach estrogenic compounds in some studies, especially when exposed to like outside conditions, like if you leave the bottles in your car and they're exposed to high UV light and high heat, then they can leach more additives, things like antimony, depending on the type of catalyst used for the plastic. But they are relatively stable when compared to other types of plastic, like polystyrene and polyvinyl chloride. But there are still, like I'm researching this and other people are researching it, so it's like an active area of interest because it's relatively assumed to be stable compared to other types that are more problematic.
Laura, can you talk a little bit about why we should care at all about, things like BPA or other xenoestrogens?
Ooh, that's a tough one to answer quickly. Let me think.
We can answer it.
We can come back to it if you'd prefer.
No, I'll think of something. So, the next question too, I think will help with this.
Okay, so should we do the
Let's do the
next question and then we'll come back to that?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Which of the following items transfers BPA, bisphenol A, is a chemical that looks like estrogen hormone through the skin, especially when wet? And the options are, so thermal paper, which is the thing that your receipts are printed on, plastic water bottles, plastic bags, or DVDs. I forgot there was this question. Does make more sense. Good thinking.
So much fun.
Okay, everyone ready for the answers? Yes, okay. Let's see here, share results. Go ahead, Adriana.
Wow, overwhelmingly thermal paper.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Ooh.
100%.
Everyone is more clever than me. I had no idea.
Yes, so that is correct. So receipts are typically printed on thermal paper. Some are not. And I think I've read like a tip is to try to get like a receipt and scratch it. And if it has a black mark on it, that's probably thermal paper. So BPA is used as a thermal developing agent. And sometimes it'll be BPA free, which people will still use other bisphenol substitutes like BPS. And they have similar problems. So they're endocrine disruptors, and increased exposure has been linked to adverse health outcomes like cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes, ADHD, male sexual dysfunction, and others. So exposure with thermal receipts is especially important for grocery store workers and baggers because exposure is highest when skin's wet or when you used hand sanitizer. So a lot of people that work in grocery stores are going to have pretty high exposure if they're like using sanitizer and then grabbing a receipt. So I guess to work it in with the question you asked, so all of those adverse health outcomes are from BPA exposure, but there are a lot of other compounds that can leach from plastics, which are some some known, so like nonylphenol, antimony, some other compounds. I'm trying to think, DEHP, which is a phthalate. They've been linked to adverse health outcomes, and especially if you're being exposed while pregnant, or if you're being exposed as a child, or when you're in a certain developmental stage, it's incredibly important because it can cause dysfunction of your hormonal system. So things like BPA can mimic estrogen in the body. And a lot of people have said it's fine because BPA exposure is very low dose, but the endocrine system works a little differently. So if you have a low dose exposure, you can have this binding to your estrogen receptors, and they're not going to function like the same way that they usually would because you're not having that endogenous hormone in there. And you can also have some receptor up mechanisms, which I won't go too much into what that is because I myself am still learning. But it's basically where you have the endogenous hormone and the synthetic hormones in your body, and you're causing your body to produce more receptors. And so you're getting more of a hormonal exposure than you typically would. So that's why some low dose exposures of synthetic compounds can be just as bad or worse than if you were to say get exposed to more BPA. I know that was a lengthy explanation, so hopefully helpful.
Very helpful. I feel like my next question is then like, why is anything in plastic, and like, should it be? But you know, that's, I think, a bigger question that we're not going to get into right now.
Yeah, I think it's tough with things like that because you would have to test for so many different toxicity endpoints that aren't typically tested for. So with this kind of thing, you would have to test for estrogenicity with, an in vitro test or an in vivo test. And I think most of the time they don't do that, and they're just going to like send it to market and not test for those things, and especially not test under consumer relevant conditions. So testing, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Just in case anyone was wondering, like, what the heck is in vitro? So that's like in a petri dish, essentially. In vivo is in some sort of living system, and then there's like the actual real life scenario, which is what we're talking about now.
So they're not testing real life scenarios.
Right, yeah.
Okay, well, that's a happy note. And on to the next question. Okay, so question 7. You can be exposed to mercury, a potent neurotoxin, by which of the following? Coal combustion, artisanal gold mining, eating fish, or all of the above?
This is a tricky one.
I feel like they're all tricky ones, personally. But
I'm like, I didn't know any of them. I think I got like one.
All right, 30 seconds is up. Okay, let's see here. So share results. Okay, what was the overwhelming consensus? Or was there one?
There, yeah, again, 100% all of the above.
Okay, delightful.
Ooh, I guess not so tricky.
Not so tricky. Got some excellent multiple choice takers here.
Yeah, so I was actually going to put this one as only eating fish because exposure to methyl mercury. So mercury from coal combustion and artisanal gold mining will usually be elemental mercury, which needs to be methylated to become methyl mercury, which is the neurotoxin that can pass the blood-brain barrier and cause neurological damage. But since mercury can be derived from those things, I just was like, we should include them anyway. So most people's exposure, though, will be from their diet through eating certain types of fish, and typically larger fish who have eaten a lot of smaller fish because it bioaccumulates and biomagnifies in the food chain will have higher concentrations of methylmercury. And I think the EPA has a guide on types of fish and their levels of mercury depending on, how big they are and what type of fish it is.
Do plastic particles also bioaccumulate the same way in fish?
So microplastics do bioaccumulate. So they can accumulate in the stomachs of certain organisms, and that can cause certain impacts, like they won't seek out energy sources or food as often because they'll think that they're full. So that is definitely one impact of microplastics on the environment too.
All right. Any questions on that one from anyone?
Okay, can I chime in with something here? Because this one blew my mind when I first learned it, is that not only does it bioaccumulate and not only like is it a risk, but they say pregnant women shouldn't eat fish because of the methyl mercury risk. Like actually women of reproductive age because of that bioaccumulation thing.
That is technically true.
What?
Am I crazy?
Yeah, I've heard that too.
But like
It's like a,
I really need to not eat fish.
right? Well, no, I mean you can eat the like non, predatory fish.
All fish minnows. All
Sardines.
fish for minnows.
Trout.
Yeah.
all the time.
yeah,
I
so
know,
I
it's
think it's,
terrifying.
it's still safe to eat fish, just being like aware of how big the fish is and how much mercury might be in it, and like not eating. I don't know if you guys have seen the Kroll show, the too much tuna thing.
Nope.
Nobody.
I haven't, but sounds interesting already.
Too much too.
But it's this skit where they just give people tons of tuna, and don't do that is all I'm saying.
That's a thing?
Question 8. This product is a complex mixture that can contain, oh, I'm not even launching this. There we go. Let's start that over. This product is a complex mixture that can contain more than 100 chemicals and is sometimes unregulated by the FDA. Is it foundation, essential oils, herbal supplements, or fertilizers?
Ooh, I think you guys added a couple of these, right?
We
Did
did.
we?
Because there was no multiple choice, so we just invented something.
Yeah,
Oh, the option.
tricky. One of these, I think, yeah, that's a tricky one. Now, I'm
Also
gonna have to-
regulated. I thought about like, the book that was regulated by the FDA, and then I got lazy.
that
Alright.
website is terrible. So
It
the
is.
FDA.
So I've tried to go on it before, and it's just like.
Let's see how we did.
All right. So we have 33% said essential oils and 67% said herbal supplements.
Which I think is actually
Okay, so the answer I had put was essential oils, but I think it could potentially apply to herbal supplements, but I'm not 100% sure. So it depends.
Canada does not regulate herbal supplements, so I don't know about the FDA. It seems like they probably wouldn't either.
Yeah, I don't think that they would regulate them here unless they have drug claims. So to be regulated as a drug or cosmetic, essential oils would have to basically make a claim that says a product will, relieve pain, relax your muscles, treat depression or anxiety, which a lot of these companies make these claims anyway, but they're probably not hopefully putting it on their packaging. But if they are, they need to go through FDA regulations to be regulated as a drug. And a lot of them will make these claims anyway and aren't regulated. So another part is that they do contain a lot of complex mixtures of chemicals that can vary depending on like batch and things like that. So another thing to keep in mind.
I'm like, isn't that the whole aromatherapy industry?
Well, there's more specific, more concerning to me is the ones who tell you to eat essential oils. Like, put a few drops of something in some water and drink that, and that always really worries me.
That's so bad, especially because it doesn't dissolve in water. So
Yeah,
people will say like, put it in your bath. And it's just like droplets of oil floating around.
True.
But at least you're not drinking your bath water. It's still just like mildly better.
I
Sorry, Sophie, go ahead.
have a question.
Yeah.
I almost feel like I should just ask you privately, but whatever. So I make these with people watching. However, knowledge is good. I make cookies that call for like a peppermint extract. I don't have peppermint extract. However, I do have peppermint oil. So I put 1 drop in a batch. Is that bad?
I mean,
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I know you might not have the answer, but I don't know.
I don't have a great answer. I'd say like from a dilutional perspective, like the concentration of your 1 drop of peppermint oil is going to be low. Do I know exactly what's in your peppermint oil? I do not.
100% natural.
the solution is we need to buy some herb seed paper that has mint in it. Is mint a herb?
It's an herb.
Yeah. Sure. And then we can grow some mint.
Yeah.
Cookies with,
You're gonna chop it
Yeah.
up?
or like extract the oil with a mortar and pestle.
I will see you 10 years from now after you finish.
Well,
that.
you're in luck. Mint is very easy to grow. It grows in a
That is true.
Yeah, it grows wild everywhere.
I'm not sure getting essential oil out of it is that easy, but
Yeah, oils take so many plants to make. They take like some of them thousands of pounds. It's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah, it makes me really want
Oh,
to.
I'm sorry for anyone.
All right.
I think we'll still keep eating your cookies, Sophie. At least I
Yeah,
would.
I will.
You know. Okay,
I've shared those cookies a lot.
great. All right, here we go. So this product contains a controversial ingredient that is also added to the water supply. An overabundance of this naturally occurring substance can cause skeletal deformities. Your options: bleach, toothpaste, pharmaceuticals, fertilizers.
So this is almost our last question. We've only got one more question after this.
Okay. And what was the thoughts?
So 33% said bleach and 67% said toothpaste.
Wonderful.
Nice. So I tried to be tricky with this one and looked up what they add to the water supply. And yeah, so bleach was an option because they add chlorine for disinfecting, but it's not naturally occurring, so wouldn't appear in rocks. But toothpaste does contain fluoride, which is naturally occurring, and regionally high concentrations of fluoride from geologic formations can cause incidences of skeletal fluorosis. And if swallowed by children, toothpaste with high fluoride can upset the GI tract of children. And it's been suspected but not confirmed to impact neurodevelopment, but it is also proven to be very beneficial to human health because of decreasing the dental caries or cavities in people. And so, yeah, toothpaste.
I want to say one thing about that. So I had cavities from fluoride apparently when I was like in high school, I think. And they weren't like normal cavities. They were like tiny and they just sort of like filled them with, I don't know, something see-through. But I was like, my dentist told me it was because there's too much fluoride. And that's how I got those specific types of cavities. And I was like, oh, okay. So I stopped using fluoride toothpaste. And
Yeah,
now
that's interesting.
but-
And it might be because of like how much regionally that your like water supplier adds versus like how much you're using in toothpaste and that kind of thing. And I think people like need to study that a bit more, like how much fluoride are we exposed to from like food sources, from toothpaste, regional water additions, and like we need to make sure that we're staying within that range that is helpful for cavities, because I think once you get like above or below, it becomes not helpful.
Makes sense. Like most things in life.
Yeah. Moderation.
Okay, now on to the last question.
Which beverage contains 10 milligrams per cup of a chemical that has been shown to cause cancer in rodents? Tea, soda, beer, coffee.
I like this question a lot.
Okay, a couple more seconds here.
It's a fun question.
Here's a fun question. All right, let's share the results.
All right, so 67% said soda and 33% said coffee.
Excellent.
Awesome. So it is coffee. So coffee roasting introduces chemical byproducts, 21 out of 30 of which have been positive in at least one test for rodent carcinogenicity.
She
I
can't
hate
say
that
it
word.
either. I struggled so hard with that word.
It's a toughie. So that means it's prone to promote cancer in rodents. And a diet free of naturally occurring chemicals that are rodent carcinogens is basically impossible because a lot of these are really high dose rodent tests. So it's hard to compare those tests to actual human health outcomes. And the American Cancer Society states that coffee may lower the risk of several types of cancers, though the benefits aren't completely understood. So just to like emphasize how confusing some of this information is when people will potentially say like, oh, don't eat this thing because it's a rodent carcinogen. That might be more misleading than you would think because so many things are considered rodent carcinogens that might potentially not be carcinogenic in humans.
Absolutely. Any questions on carcinogens? Okay, great.
How do you say that word again?
You know, we get a lot of practice in saying really dumb words in med school, so you know.
I don't know how to say the word.
I can't imagine all the medical terms. I've been watching Scrubs and I'm just like hearing all these words and I'm like, oh my God.
It's fun. You get used to it and then you feel like, you know, mildly special and then you realize no one can actually understand you when you open your mouth. So you're like, oh, as it turns out, suboptimal. Okay, I think we have a few just general questions.
Yes, and if anyone watching on YouTube or in the Zoom call has any questions, type in with them.
Now is your chance.
Now is your chance to ask Laura anything and everything you want to know about life. Because she can. But we're gonna ask you, which one? I feel like we can't get through all of these.
Yeah, probably not. Okay, tell us about human health impacts of microplastic. I feel like I would like to know personally.
Yes, so
Adriana.
I'll have a disappointing answer.
It might, yeah, it's probably the same answer I have, which is not a lot.
Yeah,
like,
so
I don't know a lot.
I don't think there's any confirmed human health impact. A lot of it, I think, so far is speculation, and there's just not enough data. And I mean, it's kind of a hard thing to study these kinds of impacts on humans because it's not like you're gonna like get this cohort of people and be like, hey, how about you eat all these plastic particles and then we can see how you're doing.
Actually, the other problem would be like you'd never be able to get a control group because everyone has been consuming microplastics now. I don't even think it's like that problem. Like we're all consuming a lot of plastic.
Well, maybe some. No,
but like, how would you
it's
ever
in the
compare it?
remote islands too.
No, the remote islands also have microplastics.
Right, and a big issue too with microplastics is it's very similar to pesticides in which like no two pesticides are going to have like the same impact and no two microplastics are going to have the same impact because, you know, they're going to vary by plastic type, by size, and then depending on where they're sourced from, they're going to have different sourced contaminants because microplastics are kind of this sorbing surface for chemicals in the environment to sit on and kind of go for a ride to wherever they want to go. So
they're like
sticky.
magnets.
Yeah, so any like lipophilic kind of chemical that's in the water can sorb to the surface of a microplastic. And some of those are like priority pollutants, but it's kind of difficult to determine like, is that pollutant in a human going to be sourced from that microplastic or is it going to be more just in the water supply? So I think it's tough to make those conclusions because they can vary so widely. And like, we don't even know the full extent of microplastic exposure. Like, I think some studies have now just saw like microplastic in meat, and there's microplastics that can be shedding from packaging that things are in and get into food. People haven't even tested, you know, microplastics in fruit and vegetables, which is highly probable to be a thing because of all of the plastic used in agriculture. So I think there's still a lot of unknown sources. There's even a lot of like air, like breathing. You get it from like microfibers shedding off of your clothing. So it's a lot.
Okay. And I think, should we skip this next one? I feel like we talked a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. What's your top tip for detecting greenwashing?
I should have thought about this one more beforehand. I thought I would know. so many thoughts.
Any
I
tip?
guess a couple of my top ones would probably be like, especially for detecting it on social media with greenwashing, is whether the person has a monetary interest in what they're sharing with you. That would be one. And that's not always like 100% true. Like follow up with people and see if they're sharing accurate information. So companies will do that a lot. As well as just with things that you're worried about that there's greenwashing, just asking questions, follow-up questions of people, asking where they're getting like their source of information. So if a company is saying like, oh, well, this thing is so much healthier because it's organic or because we sourced it from XYZ place, you might ask like follow-up questions about that. And usually people that can't answer with a definitive, like, this is why, or, you know, we looked through this thing, like, look at this literature or look at this description, or we talked to this person. There's a lot of different ways to express knowledge. But I think people who struggle to give you an upfront answer, it's kind of clear that they're trying to mislead you in some way.
Awesome. And I guess like my personal thoughts on this, like if you, like a lot of like times it's like, it's 100% natural or 100% eco-friendly or whatever. And like those actually just don't mean anything, guys. Like, so take that all with a grain of salt when you're reading these sorts of claims on bottles and such.
Right. Yeah. And I think people define eco-friendly and natural in such different ways that if they are using those terms, you might ask, like, what do you think that means to you? Or what does sustainable mean to you? And see what they say about it.
So basically do research. That's what, do your research. Don't believe the things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? I'll just put that out there before. Yes, Sophie, go ahead.
What website would you recommend for people to kind of take a look at? Because obviously EWG is something I used to look at and use, but now I realize it's not necessarily the best. So what other sites would you kind of recommend if someone is wondering if their product is okay, or, you know, something like that? Is there any website that you would recommend?
Yeah, I think it's hard with products. I don't know as much about, I know that Jen from the EcoWell had told me about a website before. It was, I'd have to like look it up to get the name for you. But I think as far as like individual compounds or chemicals and their toxicity, I always like to use PubChem, which used to be ToxNet, which I love ToxNet, and I'm mad that it's gone, but that's fine. PubChem, you can basically search for a chemical. So if you wanted to search for sodium chloride or table salt, you can see kind of like a summary of different toxicity information about that chemical. And just be wary when looking at those for like a cosmetic or a product, that information from PubChem is usually 100% concentration or whatever it says on there. And that won't be the same case in a cosmetic. So I think the issue with a lot of websites like EWG and the Think Dirty app is they take information like that and they don't really change it based on the concentration seen in the product. they're just kind of like seeing toxicity information for high dosage stuff from these studies using 100% like sodium lauryl sulfate, and then saying like, oh, that's so dangerous to use, but really in products, SLS is at such a low concentration that that's not even comparable anymore.
Okay,
That makes sense.
that's helpful. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so one last thing before we close this out. We're going to do something fun with you, Laura, and we're going to ask you some lightning round questions.
Oh no.
Pops into your mind. It's about personal preference, not about what's right or wrong.
Oh
right.
no.
Okay. Personal preferences, Laura. So, artificial fragrance or essential oil?
I have no preference.
No? All right. Conventional conditioner or apple cider vinegar?
Conventional.
Baking soda or toothpaste?
For what? For your teeth?
For teeth. For teeth.
Oh, toothpaste.
You never leave home without blank.
I don't know. Usually water bottle. Yeah.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Forest or beach?
Beach.
Guilty pleasure?
Those like really crappy Netflix like rom-coms that make no sense.
I love romantic comedies. Beyonce or Rihanna?
Oh man, how could you do this?
Say the right
Beyonce.
answer or Sarah's going to be mad.
Did you pick one? We missed it.
Oh, Beyonce.
Ah, excellent. Good choice. Okay, now last, the most important of all. Backstreet Boys or NSYNC?
I honestly can't remember which is which, but I think
That's pretty much, yeah. Exactly.
yeah, they're the same.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining.
Can I add one?
Yeah.
Laura, how's your research going? Sorry, Sophie said Sarah. How's your research?
It's going okay. Definitely, I was prepped to do a lot of lab work in the next couple months. So now I'm trying to focus more on like getting my candidacy proposal done and hopefully doing some field work. So trying to do that. There's some adjustments to be made.
Good luck, girl.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Laura, and for like blowing my mind with all of this knowledge. That was so great.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This is so fun.
It was fantastic. I feel like I'm going to need to rewatch this again just to relearn everything. It was a lot. It was great.
Yeah, and I have some like citations and stuff for all of this. So if anyone was like, I don't know.
I'm gonna put it in the comments actually.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Sorry.
I was gonna say if anyone has follow-ups, just let me know.
Awesome, we'll do that. Okay, well,
Right.
enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Is it Tuesday?
I don't
It
know
is.
what day of the week we're on. Okay. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. This has been so fun. Thanks again to Laura and to all of you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Oh, and for those of you who are watching, if you learned anything,
Right.
share it. Share it in
Keep
an
forgetting.
IG story, or I don't know where else people share things. I don't check Twitter, but you know, Instagram is good. Share with us. Tag either at Plastic Free TO or at Your Eco Friend, at Collective Impact Journey, or at Wisebird Canada. Erica couldn't be with us today, but she's part of the team. So thank you once again. And just to remind everyone, Laura, who is with us today, you can find her on IG at WasteFreePhD. All right. That's all I got. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks,
to see
everyone.
everyone.